Here is Kayleigh McEnany, who was one of the first to react to the pick of Walz. And it's so funny because I think this is going to end up like exactly mirroring the way that they responded to Biden dropping out, which was Trump's super excited that it's Kamala Harris. He's really going to, and now all the stories are like, Trump seems to have been really knocked off balance by how strong Harris was. Here is Kayleigh McEnany and Bill Hemmer. We should check on Bill Hemmer too tomorrow because
do a test on that.
And he now joins us in studio. And good morning to you. Already Republicans are saying this is the most extreme ticket in political history. What's your take on Tim Walz on the undercard now?
This is a stunning choice. I imagine there's a lot of cheering at Mar-a-Lago
Pause it for 1 second. Pause it for 1 second. I just love this. Here's play this radio ad. Let's just play this radio ad of Tim Walz. This is number 5. Here's the most, what was it? The most extreme, what do they call it?
Most extreme political ticket in American history.
Here's the VP who has now made it the most extreme political ticket in America.
Hi, my name is Tim Walz, and I'm running for Congress here in southern Minnesota for several important reasons. But today I'd like to tell you about one issue that's very personal to me. I am a retired command sergeant major in the Minnesota National Guard, and after years of firing artillery, I sustained severe inner ear damage. Because I have good health insurance provided through my employer, I was able to have surgery on my ear. As my ear healed, my hearing was gradually restored. One morning, several weeks after the surgery, I awoke to a sound I couldn't identify. I asked my wife what I was hearing, and she told me, "Tim, that's your 4-year-old daughter, Hope. You see, Hope wakes up singing every morning," but I had never heard that sound until that day. I'm running for Congress because I believe we as a country have a moral obligation to ensure that every father can hear his daughter sing, that every citizen receives the best care our medical community has to offer. I'm Tim Walz, and I approve this message because I've heard how important healthcare is to everyone.
I mean, this is the most extreme. This is the guy who makes it the most extreme ticket in American history. Incidentally, you know why his daughter's name Hope? Is because he and his wife tried to have a child for 8 years, needed IVF, and the only thing that they had was hope. And so when their daughter came, they named her Hope. Honestly, like I'm gonna break down in tears, and these guys are saying it's the most extreme ticket in the history of America.
Not quite FDR Wallace, I don't think.
I mean, but it's amazing because they're going to attack this guy as being some type of left lunatic fringe. He's going to come on the TV and people are going to be like, what the hell is that dude with the eye makeup talking about?
Right, the raccoon venture capital guy. Eyeliner Peter Thiel guy, that one?
This is the guy who, this guy who, whose boss believes that women shouldn't have the right to vote because it turns everything into socialism, is telling us this guy is an extremist.
Yeah, people in middle America love guys who shine Peter Thiel's shoes.
All right, let's play this. Go back to this Fox thing. Amazing.
McEnany now joins us in studio, and good morning to you. Already Republicans are saying this is the most extreme ticket in political history. What's your take on Tim Walz on the undercard now?
This is a stunning choice. I imagine there's a lot of cheering at Mar-a-Lago at the moment. Look, Tim Walz, he's no one to scoff at. He unseated a 6-term Republican in Congress. He won a conservative district. He began as a moderate, and then he had a radical transformation as soon as he got a trifecta in Minnesota. I think it is fair to call him a progressive in sheep's clothing. When you look at his record over the last few years, what you see are transgender surgeries for minors, carbon electrical grid by 2040, driver's licenses for illegal immigrants. In function, his abortion policy allows abortion until birth. These are policies that are far to the left of America. And as John McCormick at the Wall Street Journal pointed out,
that is just
Kamala Harris has to do the
like, first off, I love the idea that you're a progressive in sheep's clothing, like as if the sheep is a compliment here in this instance. Go ahead.
McCormick at the Wall Street Journal pointed out, Kamala Harris has to do the exact opposite of what Tim Walz did. Tim Walz became more progressive. Kamala Harris is trying to become more moderate. But Republicans are going to say, you've shed all your progressive policies, but yet you chose a progressive instead of the guy who outperformed Donald Trump and Joe Biden in Pennsylvania, and that man's name is Josh Shapiro.
And that could potentially bring support from Jewish voters, something the Harris campaign needs sorely, no matter who's on the ticket with her.
I don't think so.
Let me tell you something about Jewish voters. Every freaking cycle, we hear the same story. Jewish voters are going to leave the Democratic Party. They're not. They're not going to leave the Democratic Party. That is a complete and utter myth. And again, like the number of Gentiles who have now told me that I'm anti-Semitic because I didn't want to have Josh Shapiro as the nominee. It's hilarious. It's hilarious. All right, let's check in with Tim Pool. Let's see how stupid this gets.
So this is 23 hours ago.
So this is 23 hours ago. So he, this is before he knew what the pick was.
Yeah, so this is him wish casting yesterday.
And actually, I think, could be one of the first sort of like decent observations that Tim Pool has ever made.
I want to pull this story up real quick from Common Dreams. I have a dream, and that dream is that Kamala Harris chooses Josh Shapiro, and the woke left expose themselves because they already basically are, and it causes Kamala to lose the election. Progressives warn against Josh Shapiro as Kamala Harris nears VP choice. They wrote a letter. I think it was 50 organizations signed it. And I wonder what the problem is. Why are the progressives not happy with Josh Shapiro?
I think it's because he's Episcopalian.
Oh, that could be it. Maybe it has something to do with his last name?
I think it's the glasses.
Well, as it turns out, they love to mask their real reasons, but they actually did bring up supporting Israel. Yeah, and they said in their letter that Muslim, Arabic, and young people may turn away from Kamala Harris for supporting a Jewish guy. Okay, they didn't literally say that. They're just like, well, his position
I'm making
on
this up,
certain
in
issues.
other words.
But John King on CNN did say
He's Jewish.
Jewish.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and that's the issue.
Yeah, so that was actually fascinating to watch. Well, he said something like, I don't think
John King did not say it was because he was Jewish.
To the extent that anyone in mainstream media will say it's because he's Jewish, it's because they're lying about the actual reasons, which is that gone at Ben and Jerry's for not supporting Israel enough. It's not even just the students.
Incidentally,
the things he said about protest.
Ben and Jerry, at least Ben Cohen, I've got some bad news for you. Also a Jew.
So that was actually fascinating to watch. He said something like, I don't think she'll get enough votes. Like she might lose a lot of votes from the Democrats because he's Jewish. And while in the letter, I don't want to mischaracterize it, they're saying his support for Israel and his certain stance. But we all know
Posit, you've mischaracterized
when the Women's March happened.
Don't take him down. He's mischaracterized it. I don't want to mischaracterize it, but I will. Go ahead.
But now I'm going to use a fringe case of somebody who's been marginalized because of their views. With the Women's March thing, we can just play a little bit of this too.
I don't think she'll get enough votes. Like she might lose a lot of votes from the Democrats because he's Jewish. And while in the letter, I don't want to mischaracterize it, they're saying his support for Israel and his certain stance. But we all know when the Women's March happened, okay, you guys know the story about the Women's March? And the organizers were saying that the Jews were responsible for this war and the slave trade, and started talking about banks. I'm like, these were Black Lives Matter activists. They were organizing the Women's March. And the story was there was this Jewish woman who was involved, and she felt like she was being indoctrinated, like they were trying to teach her so she could understand the problem of the Jews and Israel and all that stuff. So it's no surprise now that they're not too happy with the idea of a Shapiro as a vice president. And while they may in their letters be like, it's clearly about Israel, I guarantee you, 100%, I'd make a bet. You go to one of these progressive protests, and you walk into this crowd of people that are holding up the Hamas signs and say, if you were to say to them, you don't really care about Israel, it's the Jews, they completely agree. They'd say 100%. Turn the camera on, they might say something different. That being said, I'm sure you've actually met them.
If there was any way, in other words, if there was any way to provide proof, they would never give it to you.
Exactly.
But believe me, in fact, the absence of that proof proves.
Makes you wonder.
Yeah, because they're so shifty. Plus, they're so shifty because most of them are Jews who are saying this.
I mean, that's the thing is like that Women's March thing, like that person has been marginalized from the movement, which is what happens when people do explicitly anti-Semitic things in pro-Palestine movement. They do get marginalized, which I would say is a goal for all these movements, which I think Zionists should also do more to maybe minimize maybe Hagee's prominence and people like him at their rallies. So like, yeah, like that. What a ridiculous smear! But yeah, you could go there with hidden cameras or something. Like? How much money are you making, Tim? Get some people out there and get this evidence.
Pop this letter up. Pop this letter up in the IM. It is from the something like 50 coalition of 50 education groups across the country, but mostly in, do you have it?
Yep. 1 second. 1 second.
Just sizing it up here. Yeah.
And but mostly in swing states. This is on July 24th, incidentally. Before, people knew Shapiro's position on attacking protesters. They knew his position on wanting to pass a law that said you can't support boycotting or divestiture movements against Israel if you want any type of job with the state. I mean, First Amendment guys usually used to have a problem with that. I haven't heard. I don't. Where was what's her face on that?
I know Batya Unger.
Barry Weiss, the big First Amendment person.
I bet. I'm just guessing.
Well, she must have been protesting out in front of Shapiro's office, I would imagine.
Yeah.
Broad coalition of public education advocacy organizations from across the U.S. write to you today to select a running mate who fully supports public education. It's our fervent hope that your running mate will reflect your strong history of supporting educators and students and commitments to building the middle class, which will require strong public schools across our nation. For this reason, we respectfully ask you not select Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro, who has supported education policies mirroring Project 2025. Scroll down to let's see all these anti-Semites. You never, ever, ever, ever heard in the mainstream media or by anybody about this letter. The Wisconsin Public Education Network, the Wisconsin Public Education Action, Voters for Strong Public Schools in Florida, Support Forest Hills Public Schools Action in Michigan, Save Our Schools Arizona, Parents for Public Schools of Milwaukee, Heal to Win, Race Forward Action, Grassroots Arkansas, the Education Economic Justice Coalition, Georgia, the Education Rights Network, Pennsylvania, 412 Justice, Pennsylvania, Colorado Fiscal Institute, Columbus Education Justice Coalition. These organizations took a big risk. These are not people who go out and say, on their YouTube show, I don't like this person. And if that person gets picked, then, their YouTube funding dries up. This is a big risk for these not-for-profit education groups to go out and make a statement like this on day one. They did that on July 24th.
And because to your point, Sam, too, it's like they could stick their neck out like this and Shapiro still could have been picked. And then say either he becomes the VP nominee or if they.
Well, that's what I mean.
If they win in November,
and a couple of those organizations are from Pennsylvania.
Right, he'll remember, or they'll remember. You know.
Oh yeah.
Education Rights Network, Pennsylvania.
Listen. I'll tell you something. I sat around a table in 2012 with a lot of nonprofit leaders of nonprofit organizations who had dealt with Andrew Cuomo. And they were all, they were like, I've never seen a group of people so dedicated to making people's lives better, who are so reliant on the governor, willing to say, I think a Republican would even be better. And they knew the price they would pay to express this publicly. If you've got multiple not-for-profit education groups in Pennsylvania, knowing that if they're successful, they're going to pay the price. But right-wingers or, former right-wingers like Joe Scarborough, who's now just a conservative right-winger. I don't know. The dude was part of Newt Gingrich's class.
Yeah. Also part of preparing the preparation.
They will tell you that this is about anti-Semitism. But, I think it was about a real, genuine fear that the Democratic Party could fall into a sort of Midwest populism, which is really tough to sort of like wrangle away from, where, you got some guy who, Walz looks a little older than 60. Walz is basically my age. I hate to break it to some of you. And, but he talks like, the guy who's working at the general store down the road and saying, well, you call it socialism, but I just call it being a nice neighbor.
Yeah, buy some bait from him.
Yep. Couldn't be happier. Could not be happier. Hey, folks, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and check out our daily show. We do it every day at 12 p.m. Eastern for about 2.5 hours. We even take phone calls. You should check that out.